I am 34 years old, male, and my ex, who is 33 years old and female, broke up with me around a month ago. We had been together for 9 years. She hasn't worked for the last 7 of those 9 years. The reason is because she didn't have to. Call me a mug if you want, but I'm very financially stable and I loved her. I was happy to give her everything she needed and wanted, and she'd expressed that she didn't want to work anymore. So that's what we did. I was happy to do so, as I genuinely thought I'd found the one, so I didn't think it would ever be an issue. However, she broke things off with me, and it was very out of the blue and devastating to me. I'll be honest. Calm as the breakup was, she didn't seem particularly bothered when she told me she didn't love me anymore. That was the reason she wanted to split. She'd fallen out of love with me. I was obviously upset and honestly shocked. I asked if I'd done anything wrong, and she said no, that she'd just fallen out of love. It just hit me like, okay, this is happening. There's nothing I can do about it. But I'm also not going to grovel and beg her to stay. She's clearly made up her mind, with her how calm she was about it all. I didn't want an argument. I didn't want a huge scene. So, I told her calmly but visibly upset to go and pack some clothes and stuff and to go to her sister's house or something because I couldn't have her there at that moment. I also asked for her key to the house, and she got a little irritated by that, but she gave it to me and then left. The following evening, we did talk on the phone. She called me and I answered. We talked, though there was nothing really to talk about. I did say to her, "So, you've really made up your mind?" She said yes, and that this was what she wanted. I can't stress enough that I was really devastated, and her blasé and nonchalantness to the situation did irritate me, because I think in this raw and fresh time, I was confused by how she ended 9 years just like that. But clearly, like I said, she'd obviously been thinking about it and was over her side of things emotionally. In the following couple of days, I slowly came to terms with it all and started planning to organize things. I took her off the car insurance for the car I bought her and went to get it. She didn't like that. I canceled her phone contract. She didn't like that either. I stopped her access to my bank account, all that kind of stuff. Naturally, she didn't like any of it, but we're not together anymore and I was paying for all that. You no longer should have access to any of it. It's not a difficult concept. Things got nasty one night when she asked to come over and pick up some more things. I said yes because she still had a few bits here. She came over, I silently let her in, and went back to the living room. She went around gathering some stuff in a suitcase she'd brought with her. She came into the living room and picked up a laptop. I said, "You can put that down. That doesn't belong to you." And an argument then broke out. I ended up looking in her suitcase, and there were other things that didn't belong to her, so I took them out while she stood there yelling at me for being petty. I mean, maybe so. I'd let her keep her phone at least after I canceled the contract. I told her she could keep her engagement ring and do whatever she wanted with it. I snapped at her while she was yelling at me and said, "You have nothing. You have the clothes on your back in this house, your makeup, your hair dryer, your hair straighteners. You can take all that. Everything else in this house isn't yours to just take." She started crying, and I asked her to leave. She sent me a huge text message, basically saying in a nutshell that I was being unfair. I don't think I have been. I've been real about it all. If we had kids, it would absolutely have been a different situation, but this was two people splitting up, one of which, myself, was paying happily for everything she had. We're not together anymore. How is it unfair of me to take all that away? You are no longer my partner. It is no longer yours. You no longer have the benefit of having me to take care of you financially. How is this not understood and is unfair? She now has pretty much nothing, sleeping on a sister's couch and needing to find a job again. It is what it is. So, am I the idiot for leaving my ex-fiancé with barely anything? Let's edit the car situation. 2 cars, both owned by me. I put her on the insurance for one of them so she could drive it legally while we were together. I had no problem with her using it as her own car, but it didn't belong to her. We're not married, no kids. She cooked and cleaned, we both did. I let her take and keep things that she and she alone used, for example, her makeup, certain electronics like hair stuff, her phone, gifts I bought for birthdays, Christmas, anniversaries, her engagement ring, keepsakes, and other random gifts, etc. She left half of them at the house, not taking or wanting them. Not the idiot, she messed around and found out she'll put up with the performance for a while and then come to the epiphany in a few weeks that she's found herself and does love you and the house and the not working and getting stuff, of course. And you should get married then. She'll get pregnant, then bam, she's set for 18 years. Homegirl will definitely be back after she realizes she can't find another person who pays for everything, and that being with him, who she doesn't love anymore, is easier than working. Homegirl might have ended up with the golden eggs if she should have had that epiphany before breaking up with OP. She could have gotten pregnant, had his kids, and lived happily a comfy life on his money while sitting on her behind doing nothing. Now, he may very well not accept her back. Back to 9 to 5 it will be for her, while living in her sister's basement. Girl really didn't think things through. OP, you did right, but she must have been really clueless or just plain stupid not to figure out beforehand that this would be the result. Every other conniving which I've ever encountered would have cleaned you out before the talk ever happens. A lesson in life. I, 27 female, have an older sister, Rachel, 29 female, who's always been the golden child in our family. Growing up, she was the smart, pretty, and talented one, while I was always in her shadow. My parents compared us constantly, and no matter how hard I tried, I could never measure up to Rachel. She got better grades, had more impressive jobs, and always seemed to get whatever she wanted without much effort. Fast forward to now, Rachel is engaged, and the entire family is obsessed with her wedding. She's marrying a guy I briefly dated in college. Let's call him Mark. We dated for about 3 months before he suddenly ghosted me. A few weeks later, Rachel introduced him as her boyfriend, which was incredibly awkward, but she dismissed my feelings, saying, "It's not like you guys were serious. I've tried to move on, but every time I see them together, it feels like I'm being erased." Rachel has asked me to be her maid of honor, and honestly, I don't want to do it. I don't even want to go to the wedding. I told her as much, and she completely blew up, accusing me of being selfish and bitter. She said, "You're just jealous because I've always been more successful than you." Her parents are pressuring me to get over it and be there for her, but I don't feel like I owe her anything after years of being second best. Some of my friends agree that I should set boundaries and not let her walk all over me. Others think I'm being petty and that this is just about old sibling rivalry. Honestly, I'm torn. Am I the idiot for refusing to support my sister's wedding because of how she's treated me in the history with her fiancé? Not the idiot, a friend advised. This is just a power play by your sister. Hold your ground. Believe me, your crazy sister is insecure and obsessed with you because you're better than her. Next time, try finding her deepest wounds, and whenever she tries to hurt you, put your finger in her wounds and keep twisting until she breaks. Another suggested, if Op is the maid of honor, then she can happily sabotage things. I'm petty enough to be maid of honor just so I can't drop the ball but make a field goal for the opposing team. Alternatively, string everyone along before announcing at the last minute that you don't feel like you do a good job as maid of honor. It's not unusual for airlines to have a handful of super cheap tickets for specific cities when a healthier person, such as yourself, goes to buy tickets to travel somewhere that weekend. So, find a city with something interesting that you can afford to go to and then go. This could backfire on OP, and her sister could make everyone think OP is jealous and trying to ruin their wedding day. I think no matter how you explain yourself, if you only draw the line at the wedding, it will look like you're just jealous and still in love with your ex. But the issue here is that your feelings and accomplishments have always been overlooked in favor of your sister. You cannot flourish in this environment. I recommend going low contact, making sure you're too busy for family events, phone calls, etc. Focus on your own life and well-being, and drop the weight of the sibling rivalry you've been forced into your whole life. Stop worrying about what they think. Don't worry about explaining yourself. Just duck out and focus on your life. I, a 53-year-old male, am white. My wife of 30 years, Naomi, is Japanese. We have 3 kids. This story focuses on my oldest son, Kyle, who is 28. When Kyle first got to college, he began dating a Japanese girl, and when he introduced her to my wife, Naomi loved her. They didn't end up working out, but for the past 3 years, my son has been seeing Danny, a black girl. My son was in medical school across the country and met Danny because they both volunteered at a soup kitchen. I remember the first time he sent a picture of her. My wife immediately didn't like her. I'm gonna try and phrase this without sounding ignorant myself, but she looks like the urban black girl most think of as an African-American woman. She has big hoop earrings, the long nails, the long eyelashes. I think she looks stunning, but I've never been in a situation where I was involved in African-American culture. Recently, my son moved back to our city for residency, and Danny moved with him and started law school. They were staying in a flat while looking for a place, and this week they finally found one. So, they invited us over for dinner. Danny cooked soul food, and this stuff was amazing. I complimented her food, and my wife gave me a side-eye. Naomi then pulled out her phone and asked Danny why she dressed like that and why she was twerking in public. Kyle asked his mom what her problem was. I then took the phone to scroll through Danny's Instagram, and while she did have some videos of her having fun, she also had plenty of pictures of her academic achievements. Before Danny could answer, I told my wife, Danny is young and having fun. I asked, did she see that Danny graduated summa cum laude or all the time she volunteered? My wife looked angry that I would bring that up. Naomi then said that she thinks that Danny isn't good enough for our son. Danny then asked why Naomi loved Kyle's ex so much. She didn't graduate with honors, and she has many different boys that she posts on social media. Danny then said, it's evident the reason Nami doesn't like me is because of my race. Nami doubled down and said, so what? I've never heard Kyle disrespect his mother, but he told her to get out. Naomi left crying in the car on the ride home. I asked her what her problem was. She asked why I didn't defend her. I said, because she was being an idiot and a hypocrite, and she's acting just like her parents. Her parents didn't like me because I was white. She said it was different and was silent on the way home. When we got to the house, she locked herself in the room and started crying. I can't feel bad for her because if someone disrespected my wife the way she disrespected Danny, I would have absolutely done the same thing Kyle did. But am I the idiot because I was also harsh towards her in this situation? Not the idiot. You stood up for your son and for Danny. You did the right thing. Also, you stood up for yourself. This was the same behavior her mother had when she married you. How could you not be angry? She'll either learn or only have 2 kids when her son's cuts are off. She has a very small window for a sincere apology, and it's closing fast. I'd ask her how she'd feel if Danny's parents rejected her soup kitchen volunteering, medical student's son because he's half Japanese and no other reason. To be honest, I don't think there even is a window. That's a line that once crossed. There's no going back. You can't just erase that from memory. It'll take years of actual hard work, not just passively no longer making nasty remarks, to undo that from her son's mind. But it will never leave Danny's mind. You can never shake the feeling that someone doesn't want you. Update. My daughter Ari and her mom are very close, so I asked her for breakfast today, and we talked. I just asked if she knew her mom to be racist. She asked why, and I told her about the incident with Danny. Ari told me everything makes sense now. She said it was subtle, but when she was in high school, she lost a chess match to a Hispanic boy, and Naomi said he must have cheated. But during another round when she lost to a white girl, her mom just said she was really good. She listed a few other instances, but it was hard to see Ari come to the realization that her mom is not who she thought she was. Ari then explained how this is bad, because Kyle told her how he was about to propose soon. I guess Ari talked to her before I could because my wife asked how I can bring the kids into the argument. I said this argument was about their brother, and our kids are very close, so they'll find out eventually. I said, since she's done crying, does she want to explain what last night was about? She said it's not that serious. I thought, how if my son and Danny got married and had kids? I wouldn't be involved if I chose to stay with Naomi, and that's not a chance I was willing to take. So, I packed my bag and told Nami that if she wasn't even willing to talk to me, I couldn't stay in this relationship. She said, stop, before I left out the door and started crying again. She admitted to having racist tendencies. She also admitted that she's jealous of Danny. She said, you were supposed to succeed and be smart like her. She said it's not fair. I said it was fair. Growing up, my wife was not poor or had it hard by any means. She had access to tutors in the best schools. I said that's a sad and pathetic excuse. She then said she was losing both of us to Danny. I asked how she talked about how I complimented Danny's cooking but didn't like Japanese food. I explained how I'm just not a fan of Japanese food, but I would eat it when she makes it, but it can't be about the food because she already had a problem before we got there. I told her I'm leaving and that until she changes her ways or gets help, I'm not coming back and I'm getting a divorce if she doesn't apologize to Danny and mean it. I've just been driving around since that conversation, and I'm hurt that the love of my life is not who I thought she was. My ex-wife and I divorced 4 years ago. It was an amicable divorce, but it also hurt me a lot because my ex-wife was the one who brought it up. She fell out of love with me. We have 2 kids who are both in high school now. My sister was also going through a divorce around the same time, but weirdly enough, that helped us get through it. The fact that we weren't alone in going through the pain was comforting. My sister has 2 kids who are around the same age as mine. It's been 4 years now since the divorce, and my ex-wife has remarried. To be honest, it doesn't really hurt me or bother me because I just feel much freer and much less burdened without the obligation of being a perfect husband. I tried to be as present as possible in my kids' lives, but I also tried to be that cool uncle to my sister's kids. My sister is the cool aunt to my kids, and they really like her. So far, I've been pretty amicable with my ex-wife. We keep our discussions strictly about our kids, as I don't really care about what's going on in her life. However, last week, my ex-wife wanted to chat with me. She asked me if I'd been dating since the divorce and also said my sister should probably move out of my house and find her own place. She added that my sister shouldn't play such a prominent role in our kids' lives. I got extremely angry after she said that. I told my ex-wife it's none of her business if I decide to date or not. I also told her our kids love hanging out with my sister and that maybe if she was a better mom and not an obnoxious pseudotherapist, they'd find her cool too. I've never spoken like this ever with my ex-wife, even when we were divorcing. My ex-wife immediately got quiet, and I felt guilty about it. I apologized. I felt really bad when she cried a few minutes later. Am I the idiot for what I told my ex-wife? Not the idiot she crossed the line by prying into your personal life and criticizing your sister's role? Your reaction was harsh, but understandable, given her overstep. Was she insinuating that you and your sister are a little too close to each other? She doesn't get to tell you how close your sister and nieces and nephews can be to your kids, nor does she get a say in whether or not you want to go out dating. It sounds like the ex is disillusioned with her hubby and trying to clear a way to weasel her way back to OP. I can just hear it now. Hubby and I had a terrible fight since your sister moved out. Could I stay in her room for a day or two? Then comes the seduction, PLO, leaving you as a mistake, AK, and so on. Why else would she be interrogating him about dating and telling him his sister needs to move out? She wants OP as a safety net in case her marriage goes south, and OP's sister is in her way. It's as obvious as a skyscraper in a desert.